I've been told my whole life that Texas is wild, lawless, and overrun with chaos. A place where tumbleweeds and 10-gallon hats outnumber actual people. Every headline, every viral clip, every political speech paints the same picture: danger, division, and dust storms of dysfunction. But the truth? I wasn't buying it anymore. So I did what I always do when something doesn't add up. I went there myself. I packed a camera, a backpack, and a healthy dose of skepticism to see what Texas really looks like beyond the sound bites and stereotypes. From the moment I landed, I realized something wasn't matching up. The Texas I was standing in didn't look anything like the Texas I'd been told about. There weren't mobs of chaos or endless gunfights at gas stations. There were families picnicking under live oaks, cyclists downtown, immigrants running thriving businesses, and more Teslas than I could count. Either everyone online had been lying to me, or Texas had quietly rewritten its own story while the rest of us were too busy arguing about it. So I decided to find out. I spent days moving through its cities and small towns. From the glass towers of Dallas to the barbecue pits of Austin, the humid heartbeat of Houston, and the windswept plains out west. I talked to people, studied the numbers, and walked through neighborhoods that never make the evening news. I wanted to see the full picture, not just what fits into a 10-second viral clip or a politician's campaign speech. What I found was far more complicated, more human, and way more interesting than I ever expected. Because Texas isn't one story. It's hundreds of stories stitched together by contradictions. It's booming tech jobs and broken infrastructure, cowboy culture, and cutting-edge innovation, fierce independence and deep community spirit, all tangled into one. So before you believe the next viral tweet or national headline about Texas being some unlivable wasteland, maybe take a closer look. Because what's really happening here might surprise you. This isn't just a story about a state. It's about how easily we're all misled by the loudest voices in the room. So buckle up, because I'm about to show you the Texas you were never supposed to see. The Texas myth. I grew up believing. Growing up, the version of Texas I thought I knew came straight out of TV shows, political debates, and endless online arguments. It was always portrayed as this wild, untamed land where everyone carried a gun, drove a pickup the size of a small house, and refused to say the word climate. I pictured a place where oil rigs outnumbered people, where every conversation ended in a heated argument about freedom, and where the only thing bigger than the land was the attitude. If you believe the headlines, Texas was a mix between a reality show and an action movie, filled with cowboys, chaos, and controversy. When you hear people talk about Texas from the outside, it's usually painted as the front line of every American divide: rural versus urban, conservative versus progressive, old America versus the new one. But the deeper I looked, the more I realized that story was written for clicks, not for truth. The loudest voices always describe Texas like it's frozen in time. But people who actually live here are building tech startups, creating renewable energy jobs, and shaping one of the fastest growing economies in the country. It's a place that's changing faster than the rest of the nation can even process. Before I came here, I had this image of Texas as a place that rejected progress. I imagined endless highways filled with lifted trucks blasting country music, while people warned outsiders not to mess with Texas. But when you actually start paying attention, you see something completely different. You see Austin leading the charge in electric vehicles, Houston quietly becoming the renewable energy capital of the U.S., and Dallas turning into one of the most diverse economic hubs in North America. The myth of an outdated, backward Texas just doesn't hold up when you stand in the middle of a city skyline glowing with startup offices and innovation labs. So I started asking myself, where did the myth even come from? Maybe it's because Texas is so massive that it's easy to tell only one story at a time. Maybe it's because national media loves conflict more than complexity. Or maybe it's because the idea of Texas being different is just too powerful of a brand to let go of. Whatever the reason, it's clear that the story I grew up believing isn't the real one. The truth is far more interesting. Texas isn't just cowboys and oil fields anymore. It's an economic powerhouse, a cultural crossroads, and a constant reminder that America's biggest state never stopped evolving. We just stopped paying attention. What I found next shattered whatever pieces of that old myth were still left in my head. Because once you see Texas up close, you realize how wrong we've all been about it. Landing in Austin, the hipster capital of Texas. Touching down in Austin feels less like arriving in the Lone Star State and more like stepping into an alternate universe that just happens to have barbecue smoke in the air. The skyline isn't endless towers of steel and glass. It's cranes, rooftop patios, and tech startups fighting for sunlight. There's an energy here that's equal parts creative chaos and calculated ambition. You can feel it in the streets where cowboy boots walk next to electric scooters, where live bands perform outside of coffee shops running on solar panels, and where the local motto, "Keep Austin Weird," has somehow turned into an economic development strategy. The myth of Texas being all oil rigs and cattle fades the moment you walk down South Congress Avenue or pedal through the downtown trail system that hugs Lady Bird Lake. Every few blocks, you pass someone launching an app, someone painting a mural, or someone trying to combine both into an NFT that funds local composting projects. The people here seem to live at the intersection of laid-back and laser-focused. They're working remote jobs for Silicon Valley firms while sipping oat milk lattes at outdoor cafes that double as pop-up music venues. The vibe is ambitious, but not desperate. Austin knows exactly what it is, and it doesn't need anyone's approval. Yet for all the cool factor, Austin is also a mirror of the bigger Texas story, growing faster than its infrastructure can keep up. The skyline is rising almost as quickly as the rent. Traffic on Interstate 35 now competes with Los Angeles congestion levels during rush hour. Longtime residents worry that the same creativity that made the city famous is being pushed out by investors chasing the next big tech boom. What used to be a haven for artists and musicians now attracts digital nomads, AI engineers, and startup founders setting up headquarters in repurposed warehouses. It's beautiful, messy, and entirely alive. But the real shock comes when you leave the downtown glow and head into the neighborhoods. East Austin, once defined by neglect and redlining, is now the cultural heartbeat of the city, filled with independent food trucks, craft breweries, and some of the most vibrant Latino and Black-owned businesses in the South. You see people working together to shape a city that refuses to fit into anyone's political box. It's proudly liberal, but deeply Texan, high-tech, yet grounded in community. You can hear the sound of a local blues band blending into the hum of drone deliveries. It's chaotic, but it's the kind of chaos that builds something new. Austin is the first sign that the story America tells about Texas is wildly incomplete. It's not just cowboys and conservatives. It's creators, coders, and community builders rewriting the script in real time. What I saw here challenged everything I thought I knew about the state, and it made one thing crystal clear. If Austin is the future of Texas, then the rest of the country should probably start paying attention. Dallas, and the illusion of perfection. Driving into Dallas feels like entering a city built to impress at every possible angle. The skyline glows with polished confidence. Sleek towers lined up like they're auditioning for a real estate commercial. Every street seems engineered for ambition. Every billboard whispering opportunity. It's the Texas version of the American dream, where success feels mandatory and struggle is hidden behind mirrored glass. Dallas doesn't just project wealth, it performs it. The city's surface gleams so brightly that it almost dares you to look for cracks underneath. At first glance, everything feels perfectly orchestrated. Downtown pulses with corporate energy. Polished restaurants fill with business lunches, and you can practically smell the ambition in the air. The highways look like rivers of chrome, connecting suburbs that seem designed to house every version of upward mobility. Yet behind all that shine, Dallas reveals its complexity in subtle ways. Beneath the skyline's confidence lies a story about pressure, reinvention, and quiet inequality. This isn't the Dallas of old Western myths. It's a global hub where finance, tech, and healthcare collide in one sprawling experiment in modern capitalism. The irony is that while the city thrives on progress, it still battles the growing pains that come with explosive growth. Housing prices have soared, with once affordable neighborhoods now transformed by rapid gentrification. The cost of living remains lower than coastal cities, but wages haven't always kept pace. Many of the workers building the luxury apartments or serving in the high-end restaurants can't afford to live anywhere near where they work. It's a pattern repeated across the country. But here, it feels especially pronounced because Dallas has built its identity on perfection. The spotless exterior hides the friction of a city trying to reconcile its image with its reality. Yet there's something magnetic about Dallas precisely because of those contradictions. Uptown buzzes with energy. Rooftop bars, art installations, and weekend farmers markets that look straight out of a lifestyle magazine. Deep Ellum, once an underground blues hub, has reinvented itself as a creative zone full of murals, live music, and late-night tacos. You feel that mix of nostalgia and reinvention in every corner. It's as if the city is constantly rebuilding itself in real time, rewriting its own mythology for whoever's watching. Still, Dallas raises an uncomfortable question about what happens when a city becomes too good at looking perfect. The drive for status and image sometimes overshadows the humanity that made it thrive in the first place. Yet when you peel back the surface, you find genuine community, people working to make the city more inclusive, artists reclaiming forgotten spaces, and activists pushing for change in neighborhoods long overlooked. Dallas is both the illusion and the awakening. It's the reflection of what America wants to be, and a reminder of the cost of chasing that dream. Walking its streets, you start to realize that perfection isn't the story of Dallas. It's the mask it wears while trying to find something real underneath. Houston, the real heartbeat. The moment you arrive in Houston, it feels different from anywhere else in Texas. The air itself carries a kind of weight, thick, humid, alive. It's not the kind of city that tries to impress you right away. Houston doesn't care what you think. It just exists, unapologetically sprawling, relentlessly diverse, and quietly driving the entire state forward while everyone else argues about who represents Texas best. You can't really understand this state until you've walked through Houston, because this is where the myth of Texas meets the modern reality. Houston isn't just the biggest city in Texas. It's one of the most diverse cities in the entire United States. More than 145 languages echo through its neighborhoods. You can find a Nigerian grocery store across the street from a Vietnamese bakery, next to a Salvadoran restaurant that shares a parking lot with a Mexican taco truck. It's not diversity as a buzzword, it's everyday life. The result is a cultural rhythm that's impossible to fake. This city runs on food, conversation, and ambition. The energy is raw and unscripted, shaped by people who came here to build something from nothing. What's fascinating is how much of Houston's identity comes from resilience. This is a city that's been hit by hurricanes, floods, and economic crashes, but it keeps coming back stronger each time. You can still see high watermarks on buildings from storms that would have broken other places. Yet somehow, Houstonians just rebuild, reinvent, and move forward. That kind of endurance shapes a city's soul. It's the reason people here talk about Houston like it's a living thing. Something that breathes, survives, and grows with every setback. The skyline tells a story of contradictions. The gleaming towers of the Texas Medical Center, the world's largest healthcare complex, rise just a few miles from neighborhoods that still struggle with aging infrastructure. Oil money helped build the city's foundation. But the new economy runs on healthcare, aerospace, and renewable energy. Houston has quietly become one of America's leaders in wind and solar innovation. It's ironic that the so-called oil capital of the world is also one of the country's fastest-growing clean energy hubs. Maybe that's the most Houston thing of all. Constantly changing the rules while everyone else is still arguing about them. Traffic here can be brutal. The humidity is legendary, and the city's layout feels like someone spilled concrete over a map. Yet there's something deeply human about how it all fits together. The neighborhoods feel authentic, from the art-filled streets of Montrose to the bustling markets in Gulfton. You see murals celebrating every culture imaginable and small businesses that survive on community loyalty rather than marketing budgets. This isn't a city of image, it's a city of substance. It doesn't need to perform because it already knows who it is. If Austin is the creative brain of Texas and Dallas is the polished face, Houston is the heart that keeps everything beating. It's the part of Texas that doesn't chase trends. It creates them quietly, from behind the scenes, through people who work too hard to care about the spotlight. Walking through its streets, you start to feel what makes this state truly powerful. It's not the slogans, the headlines, or the myths. It's the people. Unfiltered, unbothered, and endlessly driven. Houston isn't just the heartbeat of Texas. It's the reminder that the real strength of this state has always come from the ground up. Small town Texas. The part that scares outsiders. Leaving the glowing skylines behind, the highways stretch into a version of Texas that most people only see through movie clichés and political talking points. Once the towers fade, it's just open sky, faded billboards, and the hum of a two-lane road slicing through endless land. This is the Texas people warn you about. The small towns that outsiders imagine as frozen in time, full of pickup trucks, church steeples, and American flags that have seen better days. It's the part of Texas that makes the headlines sound believable. The part everyone thinks they understand, but almost no one actually visits. The truth is, small-town Texas isn't scary at all. It's raw, quiet, and strangely honest. The kind of place where people still wave from their porches, not because it's polite, but because they genuinely see you. You'll pass gas stations that double as breakfast diners, feed stores with political stickers covering the doors, and high school football fields that could seat half the town. The rhythm of life here runs slower, but it's steady, grounded in routine and survival. These towns have lost factories, weathered droughts, and watched their kids move away to bigger cities. yet they keep going. There's a stubborn pride in that, a kind of resilience that doesn't need an audience. Still, the cultural divide is impossible to ignore. Drive through towns west of Fort Worth or near the hill country, and the signs shift from billboards advertising luxury condos to ones about God, guns, and family. Conversations at local cafes sound different, more direct, less filtered. It's easy for outsiders to confuse that bluntness with hostility. But spend time listening, and you'll hear a deep sense of loyalty to community, to faith, to land. These people aren't angry at change itself. They're angry at being forgotten. They watch national news portray their lives as relics or warnings, when in reality, they're holding together the backbone of rural America with little recognition. There's beauty in these contradictions. You can find a mechanic who spends his weekends rescuing stray dogs, or a retired farmer experimenting with solar panels to power his barn. You'll meet families who've lived on the same land for 5 generations, who've survived floods, recessions, and even the slow disappearance of neighbors. Yet they still show up at the Friday night football game, still fill Main Street parades, still believe their town has a future. It's easy to laugh at that kind of optimism until you realize it's the same grit that built the state in the first place. Of course, not every encounter feels welcoming. There are moments when you can feel the weight of suspicion from people who aren't sure why you're there or what you're filming. But that discomfort cuts both ways. It's not hate, it's hesitation. Outsiders show up with cameras expecting to capture poverty or prejudice, never realizing they're the ones being judged for assuming the worst. Once you get past the surface, you find warmth, humor, and a generosity that makes city kindness feel transactional. Small-town Texas isn't the horror story the headlines promise. It's the part of the state that keeps its promises quietly, without hashtags or headlines. It's imperfect, but it's real. It's the Texas where community still matters more than politics, where time slows down just enough for you to notice how much heart is hidden behind the fences. Outsiders might come here expecting fear or division, but what they'll actually find is the last place in America where a handshake still means something. The Texas Paradox. Freedom versus control. Everywhere you go in Texas, the word freedom is painted, printed, and preached like scripture. It's on bumper stickers, billboards, and courthouse steps. People wear it on their hats, hang it on their fences, and defend it in conversations that can start out friendly and end in fireworks. Freedom here isn't just a political stance. It's an identity, a brand that defines what it means to be Texan. But when you start peeling back the layers, you notice something strange. The loudest celebration of freedom often comes with some of the tightest control over people's lives. That contradiction isn't a bug in the system. It's the system itself. Texas prides itself on being the land of independence, low taxes, minimal regulation, and the right to live how you choose. Yet the same government that champions personal liberty passes laws that dictate what happens in classrooms, hospitals, and even private lives. The state's leadership claims to hate big government, but it has built one of the most centralized systems of political power in the country. Local leaders who try to pass environmental protections, expand health care, or regulate rent often find their decisions overridden by the state legislature. The message is clear. You're free to do what you want, as long as it fits the version of freedom approved in Austin. You feel that tension everywhere. Cities like Houston and Dallas are experimenting with progressive local policies, while rural counties push in the opposite direction. The state's power grid its most famous symbol of independence, still operates separately from the rest of the country, proudly unconnected even after a deadly freeze left millions without heat. It's freedom with fine print, a reminder that sometimes independence comes at the cost of safety. Texans love to say they can take care of themselves, but when infrastructure collapses or prices skyrocket, it's the same people who end up paying for that ideology. What makes it even more fascinating is that Texans themselves are aware of the paradox. You hear it in conversations at diners and barbershops, where people will complain about government control one minute and demand more accountability the next. Freedom here doesn't mean the same thing to everyone. For some, it's about low taxes and gun rights. For others, it's about access to healthcare, education, or simply the ability to live without being judged. The clash of those definitions is what makes Texas feel like a constant argument with itself, one that never fully resolves but keeps the whole state in motion. There's something deeply American about that contradiction. Texas is both the warning and the promise. It shows what happens when freedom becomes a performance instead of a practice. Yet, it also proves how much people are willing to fight for the idea of controlling their own destiny, even when that fight comes with consequences. The paradox isn't going away anytime soon. It's the heartbeat of Texas itself. Loud, defiant, and divided, but somehow still standing tall under that endless sky. The hidden Texas you'll never see on TV. What you see on national news about Texas is always the same loop. Political rallies, border debates, heat waves, and dramatic headlines about power outages or protests. It's a version of Texas built for outrage clicks and social media sound bites. But if you spend real time here, you find a completely different story quietly unfolding in the background. It's the Texas that doesn't make it onto cable news or trending hashtags. The one built by everyday people who are reshaping the state from the ground up while no one's watching. This hidden Texas lives in the small victories you only notice when you walk the neighborhoods. In Houston, local volunteers are turning vacant lots into urban farms that feed entire blocks. In San Antonio, high school students are building solar-powered community centers. In Dallas, refugee families are opening small businesses that transform forgotten corners of the city into cultural crossroads. There's innovation happening in the places people forget exist. Rural co-ops are investing in renewable energy. Immigrant communities are creating new local economies. Indigenous groups are reclaiming land for conservation and education projects. It's not flashy, but it's real progress. Messy, persistent, and powered by people who stopped waiting for politicians to save them. The hidden Texas is also emotional. It's the quiet resilience of families rebuilding after storms. The generosity of strangers who show up with tools and food when disaster hits, and the artists painting murals that celebrate heritage instead of hiding it. These are the moments that reveal the real spirit of this state. Texans love their independence, but the truth is they survive because of each other. Whether it's a rancher helping his neighbor fix a fence or a teacher buying supplies for her students, community here isn't a slogan. It's survival in motion. There's also an undeniable creative undercurrent shaping the future. Young filmmakers, engineers, and musicians are staying in Texas instead of leaving for Los Angeles or New York. They're building their own ecosystems, film collectives in Austin, tech labs in Plano, experimental music scenes in Denton. It's as if the next generation looked at the myth of Texas and decided to rewrite it without asking for permission. You can feel the momentum building, even if no one's broadcasting it yet. This is the side of Texas you'll never see on TV because it doesn't fit the narrative. It's not chaos or crisis. It's quiet progress. It's a reminder that beyond the politics and posturing, there's a heartbeat that never stops working, never stops creating. The hidden Texas isn't about what divides the state. It's about what keeps it alive. If you really want to know the truth about this place, stop watching the headlines and start watching the people. They're the ones writing the real story of Texas. One act of grit, creativity, and compassion at a time. What Texas taught me. After traveling across Texas, I realized the biggest lie wasn't that it's dangerous or divided. It's that it can be defined at all. Texas isn't one story. It's dozens, all happening at once. It's tech startups and cattle ranches, street art and rodeos, electric cars and pickup trucks sharing the same highway. The contradictions that outsiders see as chaos are exactly what make it work. What stood out most was how deeply people here care about where they live. Every Texan I met, no matter their politics or background, carried a sense of pride that ran deeper than state lines. They argue about everything, but it comes from love, not hate. Beneath the noise and stereotypes, Texas runs on community, resilience, and the stubborn belief that things can always get better. Texas taught me that freedom isn't about doing whatever you want. It's about taking responsibility for the place you call home. The state is messy, loud, and far from perfect, but it's alive in a way few places are. So if you come here expecting the clichés, you'll miss the truth. Texas isn't the myth you've heard. It's the heartbeat of a country still figuring itself out.